I often just use this little analogy because I think it's true. No one in the room, I think, is sitting here saying, I hope 2019 is the worst year of my life. Anybody hoping that? Like, my guess is nobody's sitting here saying, I hope 2019 has more struggle and more hardship than I've ever experienced, ever. And we hope everybody, no, we want to get the most out of 2019. And so we're just committed. I'm committed the next 5 weeks. We're going to walk beside you. Want to look at the most important parts of your life, okay? And not the short term, but look at what is long-term sustainability for 2019. Because if you're like me, there are lots of times I get to this moment. I was talking with a friend this morning, and he said, any resolutions in your life? I get to this point in my life, and I've always got some resolutions, but then all of a sudden, life hits. And then February hits. And then March. And then it's like, wow, I'll make fall resolutions. In September, I'll get back on track. Like sometimes we at least I'm guessing you sometimes. So how do we not have just a short-term go of it, a short-term fix, and really look at some long-term sustainability within our life? So I want to just give you a quick intro into where we're headed over the next 5 weeks. So week 1 is don't go to church. Like that would be awful for your God life. If the only thing you did was you went to church. One of the most important parts of your life is your walk with God. Everything flows from that. So when it comes to your life with Jesus, the last thing that we want you or anyone to do is to go to church. That's what we want you to do is we want you to walk with God. Okay? Does that make sense? We want you to walk with Him in every aspect of your life. Now, the Sunday rhythm of us coming together should be a part of your walk with Him. But if it's the only part, it's not really a walk. Not even a crawl. It's maybe slither. A lean. We'll give it a lean. So don't lean with God, walk with Him. So don't go to church. Week 2, it's hard for you to be productive in your life if you're not physically healthy. It's hard for you to accomplish everything God has for you if you're not physically healthy. And so we don't want you to join a gym. Instead, we want you to commit to a healthy lifestyle. Now, that might include belonging to something like a gym. That's a part of that. We just don't want you to say, I'm just going to join a gym. We want you to commit to what a healthy lifestyle looks like within your life. All right, the third one is don't fix your marriage. It's probably my favorite week. Don't fix your marriage. Like how often have we, as husbands and wives, spent time, like we just need to fix what's going on instead of actually investing into our relationship, investing into our spouses. Maybe some of us have been trying to fix our marriage for a long time. Let's stop trying to fix our marriages and let's start investing into our marriage relationships. Week 4, don't get organized. Some of you are freaking out a little bit. Like, don't get organized. Don't get organized in week 4. Look, we want you to be productive, but it's more than that. We want to help you learn what are healthy rhythms in your life, of which you might need to be organized to make sure you do them. But what are the healthy rhythms within your life that are actually going to help you to be as productive as you can be within your life as it relates to rest and to work? And then the last week, God has given you and I each significant financial resource to steward within our lives. However, we don't want you to save money. Don't save money. Actually live by a budget and know what that looks like within your life. So we just think these are going to be ways in which it'll give you some long-term sustainability over the course of the next year. And so we're going to look at these things, we're going to evaluate them, we're going to help to develop some proactive plans for these areas within your life. And I think the byproduct of pressing into these areas is that it'll set your life up to be fruitful. The byproduct of this is it'll set you up to be fruitful. Jesus says it like this: those that abide in me bear much fruit. And so we're just going to abide in him, invite him into all these areas of our lives over the next 5 weeks to help set us up where the byproduct of that will be a fruitful life, Now, I say all that to say this. It doesn't matter how good we are at planning, how good I am at planning, how good I am at getting in front of things. Life always happens. And when life happens, we have to adjust. So yesterday, Amanda and the kids were on their way home from her mom and dad's. I got a little sick on Friday, and so didn't go up there with them. While she was there, she tore a contact, and it was her last set. And it's been her last set for probably 8 months, which is a whole nother kairos me and her need to talk about. But she didn't have any glasses, and it just so happened that her sister had some glasses that were kind of her prescription. But they were hideous. And so I'm scrambling because I'm thinking you either find an eye appointment for her or your New Year's Eve might not be as fun as you think it's going to be if she has to wear those glasses. And so she said, I know it's just vain. I'm being vain, Chad. I know this. You're not really. She said, it's the definition of vanity. I don't want people to see me in these glasses. That is vain. I'm like, okay, but still, we want to have fun New Year's Eve. So we're scrambling. Nobody has an appointment. So I call up our normal eye doctor and say, hey, can we get a little extra set of, lenses? And the lady who answered the phone was most unhelpful. I don't think she got any presents for Christmas. She needs this. Please, somebody, I might have to go and give her this week. She said, well, she hasn't been here since 2016. I'm like, well, okay, that's a long time. So she said no. So I'm like, oh, we're stuck, and I called Amanda and I said, I think it's the hideous glasses, sweetie. I think that's what we're looking at. She said, that's okay. She's sweet about it. And then I'm like, my damsel's in distress. I have to help her. And so she said, it's the same prescription. So I call back, and Jesus answered the phone this time. This lady was most helpful. I love her. And she was like, sure, I'll have a couple of lenses for her. I'm like, New Year's Eve is saved. Yes. So I head over to pick up her lenses. And you guys know I'm a football fan. And so there's a couple of games yesterday evening I wanted to make sure I got to watch. And I had a big plan, a big menu, things I was going to make, like the whole deal. And headed over to get her lenses, all of a sudden this little thing pops up on Amanda's car that says, coolant level low. I'm like, that's not my plan. And then about 5 minutes later, it said, engine hot, stop now. I thought, that's not good. I've got a football game to watch and food to cook. Long story short, I don't know what happened. I went and got antifreeze, and I dumped it into the little deal, and I was like, it's not filling up. It's like, what's going on? And so then I looked under, and it was just all pouring out. And I thought, well, I'm probably not driving this. So called AAA, and hour and a half later, they come. I'm sitting at Pep Boys looking like a hot mess. People are literally stopping to ask me if they can help me and give me things. Like, this is not a good day. Long story, point's just this. Sometimes we have a plan, and then life happens, and we've got to adjust. So we're going to spend the next 5 weeks planning. What I want to give you today is the secret sauce of how you can adjust in your life when it happens in this next year. So I want to give you a gospel nugget today that you just need to keep in your back pocket. You need to keep it somewhere so when the coolant light starts flashing in your life, when the engine says hot, you have to stop. When that happens this year, you're going to have a nugget for you to go to that will help you in the midst of it, okay? I want to set it up for you. Go to Matthew 14 in your Bibles. We're going to be reading 13 through 23 in Matthew. I want to set this up for you. So, John the Baptist is an important person in Jesus' life. Like, we have a really early interaction when Mary, who's pregnant with Jesus, Luke tells us, goes to see Elizabeth, who's pregnant with John. And Mary goes to see, and as soon as Mary comes into Elizabeth's presence, John leaps in Elizabeth's womb. John is the one, he's the weird one that is out in the wilderness. He eats locusts with honey. He wears, camel's hair, and he is preaching a message of repentance, which just means to turn away from where you're going. Turn from what you're doing. In other words, stop ignoring and focus in, because he wants people not to miss Jesus. He's the one who has some followers who've been following after him. This is the Gospel of John, who is not John the Baptist, but becomes one of Jesus' disciples. And in that story, there are a couple of guys who are followers of John the Baptist, and they see Jesus, and they're like, who's that guy? And John's like, you should stop following me and start following him now. I'm unworthy to wear his sandals. Fast paced just a little bit, John gets arrested and basically thrown into jail, the dungeon, whatever they have. Herod does that. And John is not seeing anything that's going on. And word comes back to John about what's going on with Jesus. Or it comes to Jesus and says, hey, John's wondering. And Jesus says this, you tell John, the blind see, the lame walk, the deaf hear. In other words, it's happening. Well, eventually, John is beheaded. Arguably, this is, up to this point, is Jesus' most faithful bro. All right? Most faithful. And so John's beheaded, and Jesus finds out about this. Now, sometimes in my mind, I think of Jesus as 100% God, and rightly so. But I often forget he's also 100% human, which means he feels all the emotions that we feel. Now, I know some of you in the room, I know that you've lost people very close to you, and you've lost them before their time. It was too early for them to go. And you know the grief that you feel with that. This is exactly what Jesus is feeling. And Jesus appropriately, he wants to go be alone. He's like, I just need to check out. And so he has a plan to go and to be alone. Like, that's his plan. So he's going to grieve. I mean, good gracious, shouldn't he be able to grieve? Like, he's going to be alone. And us being humans, we don't, the crowd doesn't really care about him being alone. They want more of him because he seems to be doing some pretty neat things. And so they follow after him, and his whole plan gets turned upside down for a minute. All right? Matthew 14, okay? We're going to pick it up. I'm going to read 13 through 23. Now, when Jesus heard this, it was the death of John the Baptist. He withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. Right? Like, he's going to be by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. Now, when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place. The day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages to buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "We only have 5 loaves here and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and he said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces left over, and those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Immediately, it's like Jesus is like, "Look, I was nice to them. I'm not being nice to you guys. Get lost," right? I'm back on my plan here. Immediately, he made the disciples get into a boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. All right? So we have this moment. John dies. Jesus wants to be alone. He goes to be alone. That's his plan. That's what's in front of him. The crowds get in the way. They're the coolant going off. It's the engine. Stop. You can't do what you thought you were going to do. And we have this whole situation where Jesus could be so frustrated, could tell them to get lost, whatever, but he pauses, he makes an adjustment until he can get back on track with his same plan. So there's this urgent need. He meets the need and uses it as an example to teach the disciples, a moment to teach them. He finally sends the disciples away, and he gets some clarity of how to move forward. What I want to say in the midst of for us today as we think about over the next 5 weeks and think about those moments of all the planning, all the stuff we want to accomplish, you and I are going to have times where there are setbacks this year. There are going to be moments that cause you to pause. And you can either react in your flesh or pause and rest in the Father. I think those are the 2 options. So there's going to be moments in your life this year that are going to cause you, you're going to have setbacks, they're going to cause you to say, like, that was not the plan that I made in January. And we can either react in our flesh in those moments, or we can pause and rest in the Father. And when we pause and rest in the Father, we're asking for clarity of how the Father wants to partner with us, how we need to adjust and recalibrate in moving forward. And I just want to say this also to you, is that you're not alone in this journey this year. Like, you're not alone. We're here to guide and to walk with you, to help you be able to partner with Jesus so you can walk with him in all the areas of your life this year. Like, one of the things that I am committed to, that we're committed to as a family, as you're a part of this community known as Crossroads Church, it means at the very core of it, you're not alone. You're not alone. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't feel alone and be here. It doesn't mean that you may not feel isolated and be here. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. If we don't know you feel alone, if we don't know you feel isolated, if we don't know that you're struggling, it's hard to walk with you. So sometimes we're a little too proud of our struggle. We're a little too prideful in our flesh, and we don't actually make ourselves available to the help that's in front of us. And we all struggle with that. What I'm just saying is that we are committed to walking with each other, and let's not be so prideful in our flesh, but actually when we have the struggle, when we have the pause, when we have the setback, let's help one another. And we're here to walk with you in all of those ways and help to connect Jesus into all parts of your life. I just want to share a couple of things that are on the horizon of ways in which we're here to walk with you coming up in the short run. So on the 12th, there's a Gospel Family Leaders Cookout. Anybody that's interested in leading the gospel family or is a part of an existing, leading an existing gospel family, we'd love just to connect with you guys, all right? So if you lead one or if you'd like to lead one, we'd love to connect with you on the 12th and do some training. On the 26th of Saturday, anybody go through Unique a couple years ago, the gospel-centered life design stuff? All right, anybody that went through that, we're doing a one-day life plan renewal, okay? A one-day life plan renewal. For any of you all that did that gospel-centered life design, we're going to sit for a whole day and help you, according to your life plan, map out 2019 for yourself. Where we're going to reevaluate your 3-year vision. We're going to help you develop 4 new one-year mountains you want to climb. We want to help you set your first 90-day goal and put together your weekly and monthly rhythms of what you're going to focus on. Okay, what you're going to focus on. February, we've got Exploring Discipleship that's coming up, and that's going to be Alpha. I think it's going to meet at my house on a Sunday evening. We haven't settled on that yet. But for anyone that's exploring Jesus or anyone who would like to help others explore Jesus, this is going to be fantastic, okay? That's coming up in February. March and May, we're going to do what I just talked about, the unique gospel-centered life. I couldn't get it all down on one line, so I just did that. But it's gospel-centered life design. So March, we're going to help you get identity clarity. So that's going to be like a Friday night, Saturday. We're going to help you be able to articulate in your own language the very values that God has placed and imprinted upon your life. Like, we're going to look at your life story, all of the good things, all the bad things, and we're going to help you track and trace where God's been moving in your life to actually imprint what's core to you and articulate it in your own language. And then we're going to help you as you look at your story, your personality, and the context in which you live in. When those things come together, we're going to help you articulate what is your life call. Like, when are you at your best? Identity clarity. Then in May, they both go together. Then May will be a weekend of directional clarity, where we're going to take a Friday, Saturday. It may just be one Saturday. We'll try to squeeze it into one day if we can, where we're going to help you to develop out strategies to now live out the life call that you have, as well as help you discover, define where you're headed on 4 different horizons. So what's your 3-year dream for your life? Where do you want to be there? What are the 4 one-year mountains that you're climbing? What's the 90-day goal for you? And then what are those weekly and monthly rhythms you need to have? So that's March and May. Also this spring is Financial Peace. It's going to be happening on the north side, and we can get you plugged in there. And then as always, we have those free coaching calls, 30 minutes. Just if you need help processing through something where you're stuck, you can sign up for one of those and grab one of those at any time. This is just a little snapshot of the ways in which we want to walk with you in an organized way that you have access to over the next few months. And I say all that just to say this, that you're not alone. We are here to help you. And there are going to be some setbacks within your life. Some things are not going to go according to plan. We're going to spend the next month planning stuff out. But in the midst of, at times, things not going according to plan, it's so easy to react in your flesh. It's so easy for me to react in my flesh. But instead, we want to help you to say, I need to pause. There's an adjustment that you're making here, Jesus. Something's changing in my life, which means, God, there's something that you want to say to me in the midst of this. How can I just put everything else on pause to hear from you, and then from that, move forward within my life? All right, let me just close with this here today. It's important for you to make every moment matter, okay? It's important for you to make every moment matter. And the reason why that's important is no moment is a guarantee. There are no guarantees. All of life is a gift. It's all a gift. And so often I get tempted by the devil to live like I've got a bunch of guarantees in my life. And there are lots of times I don't make moments matter that I should. And all the planning, all the prepping, all the adjustment is just simply this, that this next year, you should get the most out of it. You should get the most out of it. And the way you get the most out of it is being proactive. And so we want to help you make every moment matter within your life, because none of those are a guarantee. It's all a gift. So let's plan well and then adjust as we need to.